Boerne is probably one of the most talked about suburbs in all of San Antonio, and for good reason. It is incredibly popular. I get a ton of clients that are asking about Boerne and wanting to move there, and it's a really cool spot, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And there are several things that you need to know about Boerne before you decide to make it your next home. This is coming from a local, somebody who's lived in the San Antonio area for his entire life. So buckle up and let's get into it. One of the big things that a lot of people tend to tell me is that Boerne should not be considered a suburb of San Antonio. It is way too far away from the city. And while that might be the case, but San Antonio is a little bit different than most cities, right? You don't have suburbs that are just kind of right on top of the city because it's a little bit more sprawled out than that. So Boerne itself is about 30 to 35 miles away from downtown San Antonio. In fact, I have a ton of clients that have moved up to Boerne that are actually commuting as far down as Lackland Air Force Base. Now, that is a haul, and although it may seem like an easy drive, and it definitely is a lot easier than probably a lot of you have become used to if you're looking at places like Los Angeles or New York or, up on the Northwest, or even looking at like Houston or Austin specifically. I mean, the commute from Boerne to get into downtown San Antonio is nothing compared to those places. The biggest challenge that I see with that is the future growth of this area. So up on that northwest side, especially at I-10 and 1604, they're doing a lot of road construction. So over the past few years, it has really been a nightmare, and it still is right now. And it probably will be for the next, 6 to 12 months. But it's going to get a lot better because of those new flyover ramps that they have been finishing up. Now, as you get past that section and get into, say around like 410 and I-10, you're going to start to hit a lot more traffic, and it's going to start to become a little bit more of a slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. And your commute is going to get significantly longer. If you look from Boerne to get to downtown with no traffic, you're again like 35 minutes roughly. But you start to add any congestion in any of those locations because of the distance, then it starts to drastically increase what that commute could be. So you need to kind of take that into consideration whenever you are figuring out how far out you want to live at Boerne. Now, some of the benefits would be you don't have to live out in Esperanza, which is kind of on the back side of Boerne from the highway. If you live in, say, like Corley Farms, Fair Oaks Ranch, one of those areas that is more kind of on the highway side of Boerne, it's going to make that commute significantly easier. Next up is some of the day-to-day convenience things that some people may experience that are a little bit different than what you might first expect. But before we get into that, my name is Michael McCall. I'm a real estate agent, run a team, the Life and SATX home group here in San Antonio. I've lived here my entire life. I know this place like the back of my hand, and I absolutely love helping people just like you move here to the San Antonio area. So if you are considering a move here to this wonderful city, specifically Boerne, would love to connect with you guys. Call, text, or email us at any time, days, nights, or weekends. You can also schedule a call at your convenience with us down in the link in the description. It is Calendly link specifically right there. So would love to connect with you guys and help figure out if Boerne or San Antonio is the right place for you. Now, although Boerne is growing, and it is not a super small town by any means, you're looking at 25 to 30,000 people that currently live in Boerne, and it is growing a lot every single day. But with that population, a lot of people tend to think that it might have more of the kind of big box shopping and retail options that other cities such as San Antonio might have. At least have it close by, since it is considered a somewhat of a suburb of San Antonio. Boerne itself is known for its small town community environment. You've got the Hill Country Mile, which is its downtown. You've got these small local shops and restaurants. You've got breweries. You've got art. You've got coffee shops that line that area. You've got antique stores. I mean, you've got the works. Everything that you would picture in a small Texas downtown, you've got it right there in Boerne. And then outside of that, of course, you've got other things. You've got the big H-E-B. The H-E-B is kind of the main grocery store of Texas, and so H-E-B is everything you need for groceries. There's also a Walmart there in Boerne, but outside of that, you don't got a Target, you don't got a Best Buy, you don't got Dick's Sporting Goods, Marshalls, Ross, whatever the other big box stores that a lot of people tend to go to. That's not really my thing. But you got to go down into the Rim or to the shops at La Cantera to get to those things. And so you got to get on the highway, you got to get down into San Antonio. So you're about 15-20 minutes to get to that spot. In the best case, you may be 25-30 minutes depending on where you're at in Boerne. So it's just more of a personal preference thing here, and something you need to know that if you're looking at Boerne, it's got a lot of benefits between the school district and the small town and the hill country and just the overall community aspect of it that brings a lot of people into the town. The amenities itself, as far as the big city amenities, are not very close by at all. But honestly, if we're being real, the amenities thing, that's such a small issue compared to some of the bigger items we're going to talk about in a minute, such as the taxes and the water issues. But overall, the amenities, again, it's a small town. That's why people tend to move to a place like Boerne, right? It is all small community-based things, okay? A lot of people are looking in some of these, higher developed neighborhoods such as Esperanza, where you have these community amenity centers that make it feel like you don't need to go anywhere else outside of even your own neighborhood. You've got the schools, you got the lazy river, you've got the sport courts, the weight room. I mean, everything's just kind of right there. You got your own town within your town, right? But there are some negatives, right? So Esperanza, when we're talking about the taxes, Esperanza itself has a higher tax rate. It has the mud tax. And Esperanza is not the only community that has something similar. Now, it is called a Water Control Improvement District, WCID, okay? So this specifically, when you're looking at Boerne, increases the property tax rate for Esperanza a decent amount compared to what you get outside of that. So let's look at two specific neighborhoods. You look at Esperanza on the north side of 46, and just right across the road, you have the Ranches at Creekside. So you got the Ranches at Creekside, which doesn't have that mud tax at WCID. You're looking at a 1.85% property tax rate, okay? In Esperanza, you're looking at a 2.3 property tax rate. So again, it's not a massive difference, but it's a big enough difference to make a big deal for you guys if the property taxes are already kind of pushing your budget. And then whenever you consider the pricing in Boerne, and we're going to talk more about that here in a second as well, that can drive your property tax bill, your yearly property tax bill up a decent amount. Boerne's property taxes are a big positive when you look at it compared to San Antonio, because after you get outside of Bexar County, which is the county that San Antonio is in, and outside of the city limits of San Antonio, you significantly reduce your property taxes. And that's why the majority of Boerne, you're looking at like 1.8% in the city limits of Boerne. But you have those neighborhoods like Esperanza where you're at 2.3, and then you get outside of the city limits of Boerne, you get even lower property taxes, which you can have as low as 1.3% if you get in some of those rural areas of Boerne. Now, if you go out to another very popular new construction neighborhood in Georgia's Ranch, $1 Million Homes on Acreage, they also have one of those water control improvement districts. Okay, so the benefit of Georgia's Ranch is that it is outside of the city limits, and so you have a lower tax rate, and then you add that that WCID tax rate on top of that, you get to be about 2.1%. So it's not quite as high as Esperanza, but it's still significantly higher than Cordillera Ranch, which is that 1.3%. So the pricing of Boerne itself is obviously a big factor whenever it comes to looking at whether or not you're going to move here, because if you're looking at buying a house and you're expecting a $290,000 home, which is what you can get as a median priced home in San Antonio, it's going to be significantly harder to find that in Boerne. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but the home is going to be older, need a lot more work, and it's just not going to be to the level of what you can get in San Antonio. So the median price point in Boerne is in the $600,000 range. We're about $630,000. Average price is almost $700,000. So you have a significantly higher priced market up there in Boerne. Now, there are more homes that sell in that kind of $350 to $450 range than any other small price range. So that's kind of where the sweet spot is. But again, you have to be able to look at that, and those homes are typically smaller homes, right? So those homes that are $350 to $400, you might be able to look in San Antonio and find those exact same homes in the $225 to $275 range potentially. So you can see where the price difference, the price jump increases just to be in Boerne, specifically looking in that Boerne school district. Now, especially whenever it comes to new construction in Boerne is at a premium. You do get some places such as Corley Farms where you can get those kind of sub $400,000 new construction homes. But again, you're looking at smaller homes, and Corley Farms is another neighborhood with one of those water control improvement districts. So you do have a higher tax rate there as well. Nonetheless, if you are comparing Boerne to a place like California and you're coming from one of those places, your pricing here is going to be still significantly less than what you're getting there for a very good quality home, because there's a lot of very good quality builders and good quality neighborhoods and properties overall in Boerne, whether you're looking at $500,000 to $700,000 or $2, $3, $4 million plus, you have a wide variety of different options that are available in the Boerne area. Now, this topic is probably one of the most controversial and talked about topics in the entire state of Texas and maybe even nationally. So Texas is, specifically South Texas, is in a serious drought. We've been in a drought for the last 5 years or so, and it's nothing that we're not used to. I mean, this has happened year in and year out. I mean, it's very cyclical in nature, but this definitely has happened before. Now, this one is a little bit more intense because of the fact that there are so many more people here in this area, and so it's bringing it to the forefront of a lot of conversations. Plenty of you guys down in the comments have mentioned it as well. Looking at Boerne specifically, it's kind of in the heart of it because a vast majority of its drinking water that it supplies to its town comes from Canyon Lake. Now, Canyon Lake, for years and years and years, was a very stable, steady level lake. It never really got super low, and it is a massive lake at that too. It is currently at 59% capacity. Now, a year ago it was at 47% capacity. So that increase happened whenever we did have that big flood back in July of last year. Increase it all the way up to almost 67% capacity. So that did drastically help things, but it is kind of a temporary solution. One big rain can't solve this entire problem. This is something, like I said, has been happening for years, so I think this is going to continue to happen. When you look at overall in Boerne, you've got Canyon Lake as a supplier, you've got Boerne City Lake as well, and then you've also got groundwater with wells, and then they also use reclaimed water for a lot of things. For specifically looking at Esperanza and a couple other neighborhoods, they actually use the reclaimed water from their wastewater treatment facility. They treat it and send it back out, and they have separate water meters specifically for irrigation for the lawn. So they're not using drinkable water. They're using just sprayed on water that has been treated water, not sewage water by any means, but it's water that is not potable water. So when you look at the percentages, you got about 78% of the water comes from surface water, and about 22% comes from groundwater from their wells. Now, of course, with droughts and with a decrease in levels of the surface water, you do have decrease in levels of the groundwater as well. Boerne does have this dashboard where you can go look at all the water demand and kind of the different levels of the lakes and the rivers that are flowing into those lakes, as well as the aquifer levels and where those are kind of falling and how they have trended over time, so that you can get a better picture of what exactly is happening. And it doesn't show a true clear indicator of a major problem, but it's inevitable. I mean, especially as you look at this drought and you look at the number of people that are moving to these areas and that are using a lot of this water, there needs to be some additional solutions that can be made in the event that this drought prolongs and continues for even more years. Because if we were at this point last year at 47% in Canyon Lake, as it gets lower and lower and lower, it's going to decrease in level faster and faster and faster. So it's not like we can just sit here and wait around for a solution and get to the final seconds of, hey, this lake is about to be dry, we're about to not have any water, to actually make a decision. So that is a big concern that a lot of people have, especially coming from places like Pacific Northwest or even the Midwest, where you do get a lot more rain and water issues aren't really super common up there. So it's something to pay attention to, and something that is not really have like a great solution right now. It's something that is a constant discussion point. But from my experience, what I've seen, Boerne is doing a little bit better than most of the other municipalities at managing this and coming up with potential solutions, including not letting specific neighborhoods have as much water as other towns are allowing. Now, I do have one last fact that I want to bring up whenever it comes to things you need to know before you move to Boerne. But before I do that, let me summarize everything we've talked about so far. If you're moving to Boerne specifically for the property taxes, look at areas outside of those with the higher tax rates, okay? Especially looking outside of the city limits of Boerne. That's where you're going to get the lowest tax rate, that 1.3% rate. If you're in Esperanza, one of those popular neighborhoods in the entire San Antonio area, you're at that 2.3% rate. Significantly higher amount of taxes that you're going to be paying on a yearly basis. Commute times, if you're moving here military and you're going to be stationed over at Lackland or Fort Sam Houston, the drive from Boerne to get to either of those places is going to be a bear, and is going to be very, very, very challenging. But if it's something you're open to, then by all means make it happen. Pay attention to the budget. If you have a lower budget and you're looking for a bigger home, Boerne might not be in the cards for you. Don't try to find a needle in a haystack. decide, okay, if you need to be in Boerne, if you need to rent, but if you want to buy, adjust your criteria for the house or increase the budget, one or the other, because Boerne is significantly higher priced than San Antonio. Boerne is great if you are looking for those small town amenities, more local spots, more community focused environment. That is what Boerne has. Big city amenities, big shopping centers, big box stores. It's not Boerne. Of course, whenever it comes to the water, guys, just decide if you feel like you can trust in God and that He will provide the rain that we so desperately need here in South Texas to fill this lake and to fill our aquifers a little bit more and provide for all these people that are choosing to make this area their home. But also decide if you think that, the city of Boerne is going to do what it needs to provide for its citizens and not get into a desperation situation long term. We've covered the main big points, but there was one last thing that I feel is incredibly important that you do not want to miss whenever it comes to moving to Boerne, and it's something that you really need to know. When you are moving to Boerne, especially if you guys call me and are looking at some more information on Boerne, it is Boerne, not Bourne. Okay, the pronunciation is there on the city website. It is one of the biggest things that I feel like people mispronounce in the San Antonio area. There's plenty of things too. New Braunfels, Green, Bear County. I mean, there's a number of different things that kind of have some weird pronunciations, but just know it's Boerne, not Bourne. You don't want to be going around town calling it Bourne. Okay, and jokes aside, guys, I mean, like I said, Boerne is a very, very desirable place with a lot of pluses, but you do have these negatives you need to pay attention to, as with any area. But if you are looking at more information on Boerne and wanting to move here, again, I've lived in this area my entire life, absolutely love Boerne, and would love to have a conversation with you directly about that. So call, text, or email us at any point in time. You can also schedule a call with us. We would love to help you with your move here to the San Antonio area. And if you are looking at maybe some other suburbs and want to get some more information regarding those, take a look at this video right here. It talks about 6 separate suburbs that and kind of how they're going to explode and potentially blow up in 2026 and the benefits of each of those. So until the next one, guys, we'll see you there.